up with Renewal, your weekly World of Warcraft podcast.
Yeah, I'm Ganthia. And I'm pouring coffee.
I'm Sixy, 66 specifically. Hello, good morning, or good night for me. As soon as this is over, I'm going to bed.
Good morning, it's Princess Rihanna.
If you guys are not already, you can follow our Twitches. We do this every Tuesday as well for your weekly review. And let's get digging in. So, what was everyone's favorite key last week?
I can tell you what my least favorite was. That's for damn sure. Sanguine Depths was not kind to me.
That was the only key I left last week.
I loved it week 1. Absolutely hated it week 2.
Yeah, I agree. They were all brutal. There was not a single thing that I would say like, oh yeah, this was super ideal. I think Miss was a very timeable key. I wouldn't call it forgiving. I wouldn't call it a great key, but it was very timeable. So as was Halls of Atonement. I think that the bosses and mechanics are very manageable in that instance. So I guess I'll say Halls of Atonement was my favorite, but the rest were all absolutely mind-blowing with their difficulty.
Yeah, I had the best of luck in Spires of Ascension this week.
So I only had the opportunity to get into one Spires, and I don't want to call it mongoloid, other than the fact that that is the best description of the things that happened to me while I was in it. But I think that had I had a group that had a little more semblance of what they were doing, that also wouldn't have been such a bad key.
What about yours, House?
Honestly, I think my favorite key this week, and it's actually pretty surprising, was actually Plaguefall.
Really?
Yep, I enjoyed Plaguefall this week with a solid group. I'm not gonna lie, beginning of the week we ran it with people maybe that didn't have like a complete understanding of how difficult it was gonna be. And it was definitely a bit rough, but then later in the week it was actually not too bad. I think I enjoyed Mists as well.
I think when you have a group that's coordinated, because you and me, House, and Ganthia, we all ran Plaguefall together, and then we did Miss as well all together. It was quite a bit. Yeah. With a little bit of coordination, it's definitely something that both of those instances are very manageable. What I was struggling with is, people not having an understanding of, like, say, there's like a blob room right before the last boss. For that, or having people not having an understanding of what exactly the buffs do that Necrolords can provide was causing me some issues earlier on in the week. And then with Miss, lots and lots of problems with freeze trap on the second boss, or freeze tag, the mechanic that brings out a little blue fox, and then if anybody touches it, it ice blocks them.
It actually does it in like a radius around it too, so if you're stacked or if you hit it instead of the person, you'll get frozen. So it's a lot of like just focusing on that and dodging that. But it can be stunned, rooted, trapped. You can CC it. You can hard CC it.
I have found that I feel like a few people were trying to pad off of it, and it was causing a lot of problems in some of the groups that I was in. I didn't fail any of those keys, so despite some of that behavior that was impeding our ability to get through the key, it was still a pretty timeable key, which was at least nice compared to everything else, that is.
And Ray, what was your favorite and least favorite for the week?
Well, based off of how many times I ran Mist, which was like, I don't know, I think I lived there. I ran it over 8 times.
Oh, damn.
Well, I enjoyed Mist. I mean, I really did. The problem is, like, there are some people I did not enjoy the maze with. The maze can be interesting with different people, but it's definitely something that you can salvage also.
Yeah, 100%.
Good morning, Bahamut. Sorry, I was acknowledging chat as I see it.
No problem. I've got to be honest.
It's just no audio.
The one I did not like was actually Necrotic Week. But that could have also been the group I was with. It was pretty brutal for me. I mean, the Sanguine Depths we had issues with, but they were more mechanics. Like, I think our tank failing mechanics. I didn't run enough Sanguine Depths to say it was definitely Sanguine Depths last week. I ran a few necrotic wake. I don't know. I did not enjoy the necrotic wake at all. The top room against brutal as a healer, I think, is the biggest thing, is because people just chain pull it, and people have debuffs, and tanks are still jumping in, and I'm sitting there ripping my hair out, and it's a pile on the ground when I'm done.
What key level did you run, and how was the second boss for you, and how did you guys manage it?
It was a 10. The second boss, let's see. The second boss is the spear boss, right? Yeah. Sorry, I have to like get my head through some of those. That one we took spears. The second boss was actually fine. They did pretty good on ad management during that, and I think that made a big difference. The biggest problem was actually the trash before the first boss, people bolstering it, and then the room of the third boss were our huge pain points. And honestly, Prideful can be nasty and people don't realize it. Prideful was a mess during that one. We had people who moved all over. And I think Necrotic Wake is one that you really actually need to plot out where you're going to get Prideful. Because getting it in the middle of those trash packs upstairs when you're chain pulling already and your healer's completely beyond stressed is
one thing to note about Necrotic Wake now is, if people didn't see the nerf, the second boss used to actually get a stacking buff on him that would cause group-wide damage, but now that falls off after 30 seconds.
I was really hoping to bait Ray into segueing into that exact same comment.
But the other thing,
pretty quick. The
other thing, but that only happened yesterday. The other thing with that is its damage got increased by 100%. Yes, it falls off after 30 seconds, but overall it does more damage. So it's probably going to feel as if it were an 8 stack of that debuff at 5 instead of what it would normally be. So it's like it was like a swing almost.
So they pretty much made it so
20 hours ago. So there you go. That's when I did it.
So they pretty much made it do more damage in less amount of time, more or less.
Well, no. So I don't know if you guys, as the tank, these are things that I'm constantly aware of, is the timers. So the ads are actually on roughly a 30-second timer. So before, the issue that I was running into, because I spent about 15 hours in Necrotic Wake this week, specifically to get my 10 achievement done. And so the issue that we were running into was that if you start getting to your 4th and 5th sets of ads, you're looking at 12 and 15 stacks of that debuff, which was ticking for roughly somewhere around 9,000 to 10,000 damage per tick. So now with the 30-second timer window, that's roughly when the ads come up. So while the first 3 stacks are now hitting as if they were a 6, they fall off and you're still stuck with a 6. So it'll be much less healing overall, but a thorough put healing that is much more manageable in the long run of that boss fight. We were dealing with it by using the anima orbs that are found off of some of the broken down Goliaths. They actually pulsate a silence, which will then bring the frost mages in, rather than having to focus on the frost mage and the frost mage volley, because what that was doing was then taking away from kicking the necrotic bolt that comes off of the boss itself, which puts a healing absorb on whoever it hits, which was adding even more difficulty to the healing component of that boss. So with all of that being done, I think that if you continue to use the anima orbs with now the pulsating damage, you're able to focus your kicks onto the boss, and then it becomes a super manageable fight now, as opposed to what it was, which I believe was nearly unreasonable.
I have a question for everyone. What is the favorite thing you actually learned in a dungeon this week? Because as most people are doing right now, you're constantly learning. Like, it's only week 2, so you're learning the ins and outs of a lot of these dungeons. But there's also a lot of really fun things that you can do in said dungeons. So it's like, what's something that you learned about one of these dungeons this week that you think is it's relatively fun.
The Necrolord buffs in Plaguefall. I didn't really like understand them until like 60 kind of explained them to me this week. And there's a lot of like benefits from them. Like one of them like grants yourself and your whole group 15% haste from those red blobs like throughout the dungeon, and then like you take decreased damage from the acid rain on the last boss.
Purple.
That's huge.
Yeah.
The purple blob when absorbed will give you a 15% damage reduction, I think, or something like that.
Which is
and
insane.
then the green one has a thorns component to it, so it does damage back to the attacker. So a little bit of DPS. Yeah. All three of those blobs, by the way, can be found when you jump down into the hole to go to the last boss. You normally go straight to get to the last boss. If you go to the right instead, where there's like a cat that we've all, I think, pet at some point, there's actually three: a purple, a red, and a green blob set up right there nicely. So you need to go down with about 86% if you don't plan to kill them. If you do plan to kill them, you can go down with 83%, grab those, and get the sick buffs for yourself right as you go into the last boss. Period. What was your favorite thing you learned this week?
Honestly, it's the silliest one, but really what the different buffs are in Mists for Night Fae. I really like the mushrooms. I didn't realize that the mushrooms gave you multiple, like you had choices between the mushrooms. I don't know why I didn't realize that when I first went in. But I thought all you could get
spam and then trait or stats, right?
Yeah, so it's one stam and then the other gives you in agility and strength.
Yeah, so I thought they were only the stam ones. I don't know why I thought it was only stam, but then someone this week pointed out that, oh no, well, if you eat the other type, you can get stats, which, well, yeah, I mean, which one do I want as a healer? I want the stats for most times, but yeah, so I didn't realize that one. And it's very nice.
What about you, 60?
I'm trying to think. I don't remember if it was. I'm pretty sure it was really, really early this week. But in Sanguine Depths, the guys that do the chain, it's a lot of damage when they're doing those chains. You can actually run away and break those chains, and stop the damage. And as a Demon Hunter tank, like you don't really want to be taking like that much damage on top of getting hit by other mobs. So like a quick leap away stops that damage and allows me to just like go right back into the pole. And continue mitigating like normal, and I thought that was really fun to learn.
I'm gonna break your mind here. I can freedom that.
Oh,
of course you can.
Tricky.
I wonder if monks can Tiger Lust it as well then.
They can probably do that. Hunters, if they take the Master's Call pet, they can probably help someone out with that. So any kind of movement freeing ability, you can.
So like a Vengeful Retreat. I mean, you might break the distance anyways with Vengeful Retreat, but that breaks roots.
I wonder if Wraith Walk would work.
What?
That's
Wraith Walk for DKs.
I mean, it's worth testing out.
Yeah,
my favorite thing.
Yeah, let's check it
out. My favorite thing I learned was also in Plaguefall. Fear. I can, like, as a paladin, you can turn undead. The aberration, the purple one that does the like the damage reducing thing on the second boss, and you can just fear it to fucking Egypt and hope to God you don't reset the boss. But that thing went forever.
Dude, that was so funny.
So can I take a quick segue to complain here that the purple ad on the second boss in Plaguefall does 75% reduced damage to all mobs that it's next to. It also hits like a truck. And so on the first boss, we spend all of this time CCing these big green blobs, but that concept immediately goes out the window the second we get to the second boss, and like nobody can help me out with that mob, and it's like driving me crazy because I'm getting destroyed, and I'm like, can you please help me CC this thing and just get it away from everyone?
See,
like,
I think the problem there, 60, is that's too many things, right? When you get to the second boss in Plaguefall, you gotta be doing boss damage, you have to kill the ad.
You have to dodge.
That's it, actually. Yeah, you gotta dodge his leap
because that shit collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're expecting people to also do a third thing, which is CC that ad on top of it. I think you're asking a little too much.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Your small DPS brains can't handle it. I'll try to dumb it down for you guys.
Maybe you should.
One
Maybe.
thing to note for...
Go brrr.
Yeah. So Sanguine Depths, actually, the other one to know is if you're a Void Elf, your Spatial Rift will actually get you out of that like so fast. Like a lot of people don't use it, but you just hit it, you wait a second, and then boom, you just broke that, like, and you're across the
you
room.
time
It's
it.
like a mini blink, like, but there's a pause. So I was talking with someone like, oh, I don't use it because I have to wait for my little Rift to travel. Well, it takes like half a second for your Rift to travel fast enough. So you just, as soon as like you see it come up on the timer, you know, right before it goes off, you hit your rift in the direction you want to go, and then boom, it goes off, and then you hit your rift, and you're out. You're already out of the chains. It almost insta breaks it.
So C-Dub brings up a pretty good point, and I think this is like a big pug mentality thing. I think people bag on you if you don't top the meter, so everyone figures let someone else do it. But then the problem is, all three DPS think that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not great.
And then going into what Bahamut said, like there are so many changes to Mythic Plus.
There were a lot
Like,
last night.
Just like thinking about it, like Spires of Ascension, like those Goliaths health nerfed by 25%. The
huge.
things they no longer use the Hellions don't cast Crescendo anymore. That is huge.
Very big changes.
The buffs or the debuffs that you get on the 3 last angels before the last boss, those are removed almost like immediately after combat is dropped.
Well, so
it's
it
just like-
always dropped after combat, but before their death was like 6 seconds long. So you would get the health mob to 0%. And what was happening is their like death animation was extra dramatic, like they were on TV or something. They weren't. And so then they would finally die, and that's when you would drop combat and the stacks would fall off. In the meantime, nobody knew that. And of course, you go pull the next mob because you're in a Mythic Plus. Like, you got to keep pulling.
And then the first boss got a 10% health reduction in Plaguefall, and the Slimes got a 15% health reduction.
So as a tank, I really was struggling with the mobs up before the first boss, right? There's, if especially in a 10 plus scenario, not at lower keys, I would just honestly pull straight through, pull slow, get to the first boss on your own time. If you're sub 10, but when you're above a 10, you really want to proc Prideful right before that first boss. So there's a lot of percent before the first boss, so you have to pick and choose which packs you want to get to line you up with 20%. And so some of those mushrooms were actually hitting really, really hard. And you add in like a loose pull on a Plague Rock, and suddenly these pulls become extremely deadly where you're blowing almost every cooldown to get through them. So some of those other nerfs are about those mobs prior to the first boss, and they're actually really big changes that are super helpful and really important, I think, in order to like get through that trash. Namely, there was, sorry, I'm just gonna read them real quick. They
go for it.
reduced the fungi storm damage by 20%. It was a channel where one of the mushrooms was spinning. You can use fear, stun, or a few other things to reduce it. Imprison was canceling it. Big thing. So now you have a little bit more time if you need to dodge something prior to interrupting it. And then clinging infestation was the hives to the left. Most people aren't pulling them because they were devastating. They would wipe you if you accidentally pulled them. Now there might be trash that you can pick up and do to make your route a little bit easier or to get your percent a little bit better, as well as the binding fungus is now interruptible. But they did buff it a little bit. It's now 3 seconds long as opposed to 6 seconds long, but you can interrupt it rather than needing to stun it.
Yeah, I think another really big one before we go into what is even the potential affixes of this week is Theater of Pain nerfs are pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this, that the Grasping Hands on the Lich boss is actually supposed to spawn in 2 locations. It's not just supposed to be one.
I thought you were supposed to stack it. That's what we've been doing.
Each person is supposed to get their own Grasping Hands. I thought the same thing. I thought we were both supposed to just go on it, but like having that actually be a thing is, I mean, and that's probably why it was bugging out for me earlier in the week, where we were both sitting in the Grasping Hands, and my ghost just kind of fucking bolted. But that one's pretty big, and like the last boss got hella nerfed. The Echoes of Carnage periodic damage got reduced by 50%. The the Dark Devastation, it got a second increased cast time, which is the thing that she casts in front of her and then moves. And then the Ghostly Charge cast time went up a second and a half, so you're gonna have even more time to like position yourself and dodge, which is actually really nice.
I think my biggest pet peeve in Theater of Pain on the last boss is tanks feeling the need to tank that boss right in the middle. There's no point. I think it makes it easier to dodge everything if the boss tanks that last boss in Theater of Pain on the edge.
I think I've only ever been in groups that they've tanked it on the edge.
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, since I'm the tank, I've always tanked it on. I have this internal fire to move that boss as little as possible, like always. In fact, you yelled at me today because I didn't move the boss out of some green stuff because I don't want to move anything ever under any circumstances.
Oh my god, and missed? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I think the note about that last boss, like the little ads that spawn, like yeah, it's important to like
You're talking about the miss ads?
No. Talk about Theater of Pain.
Okay.
On the last boss, the ads on that spawn and cause like the death bolt, which if I'm not mistaken, it causes a heal absorb.
I'm not sure about that.
You can stun them too. So that's what I've been doing. Like as it comes out, I just stun it out the gate, and then I can get a later interrupt if it doesn't die. So it's just like people can you can CC those pretty easily, like a hard stun, if you want to save an interrupt. Because I know that was like those things hit the tank super hard.
So I actually went through my damage earlier today because when I saw that there was nerfs to the dot damage, I thought that I was going to. There's some overlaps in there that are really, really painful as a tank. And in fact, some of my keys early in the week were dropped because I've become very self-sufficient as a tank that usually works in pugs. So I don't call for externals very often. And I found myself constantly getting one shot right around the 10 to 15% mark of the boss. And it's because I just didn't have anything up for the Reaping Scythe, which I thought was doing all the damage. Almost, I think it was something like 80% of the damage that I was taking was just from melee swings from that boss. So unfortunately, they didn't actually nerf any of the damage that I've been taking from that boss. And I was really hoping to get some reprieve with some of like the overlaps where the healer's getting sucked into the ball and they can't really cast and they need to dodge this and that and the other thing. I was hoping to get some reprieve there and maybe like lessen the load, but unfortunately I'm still up shit's creek and got to get an external right around the time I get my last Reaping Scythe. So
just make a macro.
It is what it is, but well, I think it's important that the healer's now able to focus on me a little bit, right? Now that some of the other damage hopefully is mitigated a little bit, hopefully they won't be struggling to then get me what I need during those really bad overlaps. So but with that being said, you were mentioning some of the bugs like the grasping. I was having an issue. We went into the 12 necrotic wake that we ended up scuffing pretty quickly and just like walking back outside of. I had this issue where I threw my glaive at one of the mobs. It's a perfect 3-pack mob, so I'm like, these mobs will come straight to me. They'll blow up on this pack, and then they don't cause bolstering, and they do damage to the other mobs. The blight bags in the first one of Necrotic Wake, amazing. They're super great to pull into other packs, especially on bolstering week. They don't cause any additional bolstering. Turns out that Throw Glaive right now is bugged out, where I only generate aggro on the initial target that it hits, and my remaining 2 bounces don't do any aggro. So the blight bags took off right away to the druid that we had in the group who was casting Starfall at the time. I was so distraught. I'm like, this fucking idiot, why would he have to move into melee? Like, hello, do you not see that they're running at you? And it turns out that it's actually a bug and it's causing a lot of problems. It caused a problem in my 12th DOS, which I did time, but I pulled and like they just ran over to the boomkin. I'm like, he wasn't casting though. Like, why would it just run over to him? And it's because I didn't generate any threat whatsoever, and he got proximity threat. So if you're running with tanks, Demon Hunter tanks, mention to them their Throw Glaive isn't working properly. Maybe use their Fire Sigil instead, or just give them a second to generate some threat via like Immo Aura or any of their other talents, so that you don't end up getting one shot on something very silly.
Well, I mean, considering that you're the most, sorry, I mean, considering that you're the
speak on behalf. Go ahead.
No, you go. I don't want to talk anymore.
I was saying I'm going to speak on behalf of DPS. We're not going to wait.
Yeah.
We're going to say we're going to wait. We're going to realize that cooldowns are up, and we're going to go.
We're gonna go
here.
Burr.
We're going to go Burr.
We go Burr now.
P-Ray, how can you just not res them for me? I appreciate you.
Sure.
And that's what I appreciate about you.
No. I was gonna say, like, considering you're the most power, like you're like the most like used tank being a demon hunter, I think you need some bugs. I mean, it just comes with the territory, right? This point,
you know what? It's so easy, to be honest with you, for me. Like, there's so little challenges that, you know, that's fine. I can work around this one.
I mean,
so
I thought you were going to say house.
Was that really what you were gonna say?
yeah,
Alex?
that's actually what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
That's
so
all.
I'm going to go into what the predicted affixes are this week. As everyone knows, that the fortified and tyrannical switches every week, and then you get a new level 4, level 7, and then you have prideful at 10. But this week, what Wowhead is saying is we're going to have your level 4 affix be spiteful, which is a new Shadowlands affix, and then level 7 is going to be Grievous. And if people don't know what Grievous is, it is a stacking debuff that does damage to you as you are under 90% health. And the longer you're at under 90% health, the harder it hits. So, but after combat, it doesn't continue to stack anymore. That was a change, I believe, in Season 4 of BFA. But looking into Spiteful, it is almost like Thing from Beyond. So it's going to spawn and it's going to chase one person. I believe that it can be rooted, trapped, stunned, from what I was reading. So it's like, it'll probably announce DBM will probably, or big wigs, or what big wings, little wings, big whatever it is that you use, will probably alert you as to who it's on.
Did you just say little wings?
Little wigs, big wigs, I don't know. I don't use
Little
that
wings. I'm gonna make an add-on, and it's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna be called Little Wings.
I don't know what that add-on's called. I don't use it. I use DBM.
Okay, so when you say for Grievous, let's go back to Grievous really quick. As a healer, this is particularly interesting to me. So when you say it doesn't continue to stack out of combat, what do you mean by that?
So, you know how while you're in combat, like Grievous can go up to 4, I believe. So say you end combat at 2 stacks of Grievous, it will not continue to go to 3 and 4. It'll stay at 2 until you're healed over 90.
Didn't they also change it so that the periodic damage of it is no longer health based? So it used to be that it did what, like 3 or 5 or something % damage per stack. Now it scales based on the level of the key. Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
It's 1 physical damage every 3 seconds. I don't know what 1 physical damage is, but I guess I'm running into the problem. I'm trying to find those changes for what they did to it, where it doesn't continue out of combat, and I can't find that.
Well, it stays on you until you're healed, but the damage will increase. Like I said, it won't go from like 2 to 3 while you're out of combat.
So
it'll stay at a 2.
So if your healer happens to die and you're saying there's 2 stacks, you're not going to die because they can't get to you in time anymore.
Like, bring food. Bring food.
Still bring food, but yes.
Don't be a dingus. Bring food.
The other one is don't be a dingus and not eat and expect your healer to heal you to full when they need to be getting mana.
Or how about if you're at half health and don't leap into a boss? 60. Sorry, I'm not sure if you could hear. I was coughing when I happened to say that. 60.
Hey, that's what metamorphosis is for. But I do want to talk about what I perceive. Obviously, I hadn't seen this affix on the new affix on beta, Spiteful, and I have no understanding or knowledge of it. But I do imagine that if you just finished a particularly nasty pack, or one of these packs where your prideful ad pops up in the middle and you're kind of just finishing off the last 2 mobs, and then you also spawn these spiteful ads, this can get pretty hectic and pretty crazy pretty fast. I know that on certain situations, I'm out of cooldowns. I've needed to kite the remaining 2 ads out because they had a lot of bolstering stacks this week. And as we go into another fortified week, I'm still not really getting out of that scenario. Dragging that prideful ad oftentimes caused additional issues because people would then adjust to me moving and then hit each other with the I don't know what the plus sign thing is called, but they would hit each other with the dot thing that's applied to them.
Oh yeah, the
So I'm imagining it's going to get pretty messy. P-Ray, how are you feeling about that, especially as a healer who's maybe on their last legs, you know, running out of mana because that we just finished a particularly hard pull? How do you think you're going to adjust to that?
a lot of it's actually communication. I mean, I know it's a hard thing to say, especially in pugs, but a lot of it is communication. And I think some of it's on the healer to communicate expectations at the start. Some healers do better with stacked groups. Other healers, it doesn't matter whether or not you're stacked. I have to say that having all melee is painful for that, but having range all over the place is also painful for that because range is just all over, so you can't hit with anything. But loosely stacking, I think, is honestly the best thing because then you can see everything. So personally, I would communicate to my team that you need to loosely stack so that you can have a good idea of where everybody's at. If you've got a hunter all the way out there in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to be able to see where that's coming. People are going to take more damage. That means there's going to be more grievous damage, which means it's going to be even harder to keep up, especially when you get those stacks from it. So a lot of it's really there and in positioning, I think, that makes it easier for your healer to be able to heal through it.
I think it'll be helpful having like classes save their like oh shit buttons, like hunters saving exhilaration for something like that, and like people like classes who can like off heal. Like I'll probably during that use Word of Glory on proc, like with Divine Purpose and stuff like that to try to help out. I mean, I do that already. Like I'll throw a Word of Glory on somebody who I'm seeing is low, or if I'm an idiot and I get hit by something, I'll human racial and heal myself. But I think it'll be important to like save abilities like that, especially if the healer is low on mana going into Prideful.
Yep. The other thing I can also recommend, especially going into a Grievous week, if we have Grievous, is even if you don't think it's necessary as a DPS, but have a way to either turn it on your unit frames or get a weak aura. Like I actually use both. I use a weak aura that tells me like a little list of all the party members and what stacks they're at. In addition to I can see stacks on unit frames. I like having that like little stack list because it literally puts them in order of who has the highest stacks for me, which your unit frames don't change. It's a leftover from way back in Legion. I just prefer that style. Even after I turned on the unit frames, it's a lightweight weak aura that I run, helping clear it. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting there as a healer, just sinking heals into somebody who's got full stacks of Grievous, trying to clear them, and they're taking damage during combat. And there's a couple DPS who could have off healed who if I would have gotten like one extra heal from, we would have pushed them over that 90% edge. We would have dropped the Grievous, which then it would have like definitely stabilized the group. But because we didn't get any help, and even though I was actually calling in voice one time and we lost the tank. I mean it was a very frustrating fight because just one off heal would have made the difference. So DPS can really definitely help with off heals and things like that. And unfortunately, I know a lot of DPS who say Grievous isn't their problem, it's a healer problem. I don't even track it, it's not my problem. And I just kind of see that like as a healer, threat, mechanics, all of that's my problem as a healer. I don't think anything is just one role's problem. It's up to let's see where you can help out. Yeah, your healer is the one who is responsible for keeping you up as much as they can, but doesn't mean that they're the only ones who can ever cast a heal. And like, yeah.
So are you planning to make any changes to your talents in anticipation of this to adjust for it? Like I know the Demon Hunter and the Rogue trees, because those are classes that I play, have like a utility row essentially. Are you planning to make any adjustments?
Probably not.
I won't, because I already take the talent that lets me do it. and I'm not sure if that's like a flat like paladin talent.
Are you referring
But
to like blinding light, or which one? Are you
no,
referring to?
I'm referring to healing hands,
Okay.
which is on the same row as like selfless healer and for some reason Justicar's vengeance, which you don't take.
So
But
Dark
I'm just
actually posted the new like Grievous like the way it works pretty much. Damage is now a flat amount that scales with keystone level rather than a percent of players' maximum health. Added functionality: non-periodic heals will now remove one application of Grievous wound. Developers note this allows healers to more reliably triage the effect while dealing with heavy group damage, and adds more texture to the choice between fast and efficient heals.
Interesting.
but yeah, so the talent that I take here, like I said, called Healing Hands. This is the cooldown of lay on hands is reduced up to 60% based on the target's missing health. So I automatically get a big heal cooldown reduction. But also, Word of Glory's healing is increased up to 100% based on the target's missing health. So it's like being able to like. That's why I take that. Like I take it in PvP as well. I take it in raid. I take it in keys because like when I get a divine purpose proc and I see someone's low, I can just toss that on there and like it can crit from anywhere. It can heal from anywhere to like 5,000 to like 22,000 health. It's a really huge utility to have. And I mean, if there are Ret Paladins should be taking that talent over Selfless Healer no matter what.
But what if you're selfish? What if you're selfish?
When I took Selfless Healer, I was 100% selfish with it.
So I mean, so I guess I was referring more to like I know in my Demon Hunter talents, and I don't dabble too much in the Havoc world anymore, but there's 3 options for my quote unquote utility row. It's to have an AoE stun that's on a lower cooldown and cost me no energy. I can get a second throw glaive, but it also slows enemy units, and then I can get a single target stun that's just separate. Those 3 things can make all of the difference when we're talking about specifically these spiteful ads. I don't know what talent like blinding light is on for you guys. I don't know if that's like a separate utility row. House, do you have like a utility row kind of like that where you're planning to make adjustments depending on how spiteful kind of plays out? It's kind of what I was hoping to get an answer for.
So I mean, like really, like the big like utility changes for like DK is either like a longer grip or a stun. That's really our 2 choices.
Okay. Is the death and decay slow not still a thing?
It is, and I'm trying to think like what the other option is in that row, and I'm pretty sure it is not a great choice. Come back to me.
Okay. Gantheon blinding light, is that also not a row where you can mess with it? It'll affect your DPS too heavily. Or
I mean, I don't think I would take it over Fist of Justice.
what's Fits of Justice do for
so every time I spend Holy Power, it reduces the cooldown of Hammer of Justice by 2 seconds. So it's short Hodge.
Have you, as a tank that notices things like Hodges getting used, just especially because I'm constantly monitoring how we're DRing certain mobs, I haven't noticed my paladins using Hodge very often. Are you finding that you're using Hodge so frequently that that's making a big difference in your keys versus having blinding light? I believe is like a disorient, right? So that could buy us 5-6 seconds potentially if it doesn't get broken off of these spiteful mobs.
I mean, yes, but also like having short Hodge up, like one, it helps if someone doesn't have an interrupt. I have a mouse over macroed, so it's like if someone doesn't have an interrupt, I can just hover over the thing that needs to be interrupted and stun it, and then have my interrupt for something. Or if I'm on an interrupt target, I can interrupt, stun, interrupt, and I can I'll be using it on spiteful ads. I can guarantee, but like I think that is more. I think short Hodge is more reliable than blinding light.
Okay. Yeah. So also for DKs, yeah. So I thought it was the Grip of the Dead, which is our death and decay slow, is in the same row as our stun. So it's either we take our only stun. Well, if you're a good DK, you have your pet stun on macro, because if you don't have it on a macro, then your pet's gonna automatically stun. So it's either take Asphyxiate, which gives you another stun, or it's take Grip of the Dead. And I think you're just gonna find most DKs just sticking with her asphyxiate. And
So-
support, we were talking about the spiteful ads, more or less,
Yeah,
for it.
Yeah. The one thing to note is that I know you guys mostly play melee, but they die pretty quick from everything. Knockbacks actually work on them too. So not all of them
Maybe
have to
AoE'd.
Yeah, they can be crowd controlled using stuns, slows, knockbacks.
I'm curious if it's more like a like if let's say we have a pack. I'm thinking like my necrotic wake, my like third pole has like 6 mobs in it, and they almost all die at the same time. And I'm curious if it's more akin to the season 2 affix of BFA, where you have a bunch of little ads and they have like a little like abilities that they use, or if it's more like the 6 mobs will spawn one spiteful ad, and it kind of needs to be managed.
No, it's any mob that dies summons a spiteful shade. They all have a 100k health baseline and scale off key level.
Okay.
And it fixates a random player. But they lose 8% of their health every second it's alive. So if you can kite, like for range, it's probably not going to be that big of a problem because you can just stun it and forget it. It's going to die. But for melee, it's going to be the problem.
Which is kind of why I've been talking about these slows and things like that, because
Yeah,
I foresee the way my brain working is to immediately start moving the mobs away from those ads or whatever.
Yeah, because it is
and the
nothing but
slow would be
melee.
super beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has
I mean,
no
I-
ability other than just meleeing you very, very hard.
I agree with Bahamut and Ever, because like they're talking right now Hodge over Blinding Light, and that is correct. You're not going to DR a spiteful ad. Like I don't think we're going, like, unless you overlap stuns. That's the only way that's going to happen.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the utility of Hodge for the pack itself, right? You use Hodge to interrupt something, right?
Yeah.
And
so
then
so for
spiteful
instance,
but so I'm arguing the utility of it up front versus the utility of Blinding Light on the back end, right? How often are we using Hodge on the front end that it's so worth not having Blinding Light on the back end, where if 6 mobs die at the same time, we have 6 spiteful ads, Blinding Light can hit all 6 of them, and then we can move on to the next pack, right? That Hodge was maybe useful during the pack 1 time, 3 times throughout the dungeon, but Blinding Light will be useful every single pack throughout every single, that's kind of the argument of what I'm looking at.
It's a 2-minute cooldown.
The Blinding Light is.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not worth.
It's not a short cooldown. Plus, like, what are the odds that every ad spawns spiteful? That's also needs to be put into, like,
Sure.
counting in on that.
I mean, the
Like,
tooltips
yeah,
say all the tooltips says fiends rise from the corpse of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. So I mean, I didn't see it on beta. I didn't.
Any mob that's not a boss will spawn a spiteful shade. Is what it's saying.
I mean, that seems insane if it's on every ad that you kill.
I mean, you're looking at adding, especially on a fortified week, you're looking at adding substantial amounts of time. If you don't let those ads kill themselves through kiting, you're adding substantial amounts of time to your keys by doing an additional, potentially scaling. Let's say it scales, we don't know the scaling, but if it starts baseline 100k, starting at level 4, what is it going to be on a 14, right?
Yeah,
like that's a substantial amount of time to be trying to kill an ad that you can just otherwise. I'm not picking on you. You're just the person I have.
I know.
Available
and it's
to talk
like,
to me about it.
When you think of it, when you think of like the higher groups pushing right now, they have rogues, hunters, mages. If it comes to being something like that, you're probably gonna have a huge frost nova. Like if they all die and spawn like 10 things, you can have a huge frost nova, or like a binding shot, tar trap. They're like the meta comps are like, if that is the way it is, I don't think they're gonna have any issues with it. But there's no shot that it's gonna spawn on every ad. But I have no idea.
Bahamut, you mentioned Frost Nova, and Ganthian, you did as well. You're asking the range, who P-Ray just said it best, is not going to be paying attention to this affix, to then come in and then handle your affix for you as a melee player. Right.
That's why I said, like, when you're looking at the higher pushing groups, you're going to have a mage who is going to do that. If this is the way that the affix works, they're going to do it. because that's going to be the play style of it. But you're only going to have one melee class anyways, for the most part. I mean, you look at
Melee
the
are
top
really
groups.
getting shafted this season.
Yeah, so far we've got back-to-back affixes that are really feeling
when
kind
you
of
think
rough
about
and
it, one thing you got to think
one-dimensional.
about is you've got knockbacks too. Like you've got knockbacks, you've got racial stuns and things like that that can be used. I mean, you just need to be much more vocal about stuff.
I'm gonna tell you guys right now, as a tank, there is nothing worse than a knockback. I have not appreciated a single person's knockback to date. In the 4 weeks I have been playing, every single knockback has pissed me off to no end. So I do not recommend using knockback as your primary source of mitigating this affix, especially if you still have other mobs alive right now.
You have to kite. Wouldn't ring or a knockback actually be the best thing? I mean, granted, you need to make sure you're pulling it so you've got room to do them.
Also, what is Ever saying? I'm pretty sure range was not fucked for like 3/4 of BFA.
They weren't what affix is specifically targeted range besides volcanic? And volcanic affects us all now. So
If it was very kick heavy dungeons, we're not
by us also getting.
We're not talking about the dungeons themselves. I'm just talking about the affixes. Because I remember like literally on Sanguine Depths on the chain pole, right? Like on the ad that gives you chains. All right, so we're in Sanguine Depths, so it was like the first chain ad. I got stuck in a corner and there was like 20 tornadoes and I couldn't move out of it. I couldn't get away.
Also, Sanguine being a melee is not fun as well, because if they draw, I mean, they lowered the initial damage, the initial tick of it all, but still, being a melee in that and not having to deal with it as ranged.
Okay. You say that range don't have to deal with Sanguine. Range have to deal with Sanguine. We had to get over the crap that you dropped on the floor. I mean, we kill the mobs. You have to get past
that
it.
implies melee moved.
But now they only last for 30 seconds.
Don't. You're giving melee way too much credit for moving out of Sanguine. Hello.
Well, I happen to know that, considering the fact Blades will sit in it and say, "Hey, look, I'm helping your healing parses."
I think too. Like there was some very, very finite interactions that I don't think people noticed. And I don't want to harp too much on last week's affixes, but with the storming affix on the Millhouse's boss of the other side, I was getting some really, really inopportune storming that were knocking me up and moving Millhouse out of the stun. Now it didn't end up affecting the stun that needed to interrupt his diabolical whatever it's called, the super big important cast that you really need to use the stun to get him out of. But it could have potentially been disastrous if I got a poor storming at the exact same time as I got that mechanic.
So it was actually kind of funny. Like, so after we had the podcast last week, we went and ran keys, right? And we went to Halls of Atonement. And it was on the second boss, like when he does that leap mechanic, right? The great thing is, right? So if you get slowed and you can't move, and he's about to do his leap, if you got hit by storming, it would mitigate the cast. He wouldn't cast it.
It wouldn't break the gargoyles.
It wouldn't break the gargoyles. Like he would stop the cast if you got knocked with storming. Like, so you're frozen in place, you can't move, and then you get hit by storming, which is out of your control. He wouldn't finish the cast, and you like ended up with like 60 ads,
which only spawns more storming, which only makes it more impossible to get rid of them. Correct?
Yeah. So the curse is dispellable, but you have to have somebody who can decurse,
or that even knows they have it as a button.
Or you can
mages.
You can race relate if you're human. I don't think Mass Dispel works on curses, does it?
It does not. Only magic.
Well, we did not have a mage.
I'm just finding it. I'm noticing with some of my newer players, some of the guys that I'm running with, they don't see how soothe heavy a lot of dungeons has become, especially the beginning of Theater of Pain and the beginning of Necrotic Wake. Soothe is absolutely quintessential to getting through those poles, especially as you get into higher and higher keys, and those techniques start damaging your tanks more and more. So hunters, please dust off your tranquilizing shot, I believe it's called, boomkins.
Yeah, you actually get focus for tranking.
Yeah, these are
Like,
huge tools. And rogues, you can actually shiv with mind numbing poison on, and it also counts to de-enrage certain mobs, which can be
I
massive,
didn't know that.
especially on the first boss of Theater of Pain.
I think I've seen
I
more
didn't know
tanks
the main
die to the loyal beast cast, like the repercussions of it getting off, more than anything this week.
Yeah, and that's something that's easily taken care of. A quarter of
Yeah,
a second,
like-
one time, and those packs are not. The tanks know better than to pull those back to back, right? So your cooldown's almost always up. You save the pull just like that.
Yeah, so hunters, if you like, it was like when you hit level 54, tranquilizing shot actually gives you like 15 focus. So it's like it actually might benefit you to trank those things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so it looks like we're running out of time here. We got 8 minutes
There's
left on
no
this thing.
way.
Closing statements, friends. Closing
There is
statements.
no way that was almost an hour.
Yeah,
You wanna start- you wanna
51
start
minutes
us off,
on
Anthony?
the stream.
What are you, Gantheon? What are you looking forward to this week? What are you hoping to accomplish this week? Tell me your hopes and dreams.
So I was able to time 15 last week, and I want to just make more progress towards KSM because that mount is disgusting. But I'm really hoping, like, I've enjoyed a lot of the facets of the game, like PvPing right now. I know this is a primarily PvE podcast, but early is beneficial to even just hit combatant, just hit 1600 or try to, and it's what 213 pieces out of your Great Vault. Like,
Sir, you
gearing
are
things
a
up
ret
now is
paladin.
really
You are
important.
broken.
Whatever.
I would
But I
like
mean, I'm
you
looking.
please die in a fire.
I'm
think
looking
that's
forward
something.
to trying to get more 15s done, getting more progress on my KSM, and finding groups where I can spread the good word of Ret Paladins in Keys.
House, talk to me. Hopes and dreams. What are you looking forward to this week?
Getting a 20 key done. No, I'm kidding. I think the biggest thing is like I need to do more keys. I've been severely lacking in that department. I got very frustrated at the beginning of the week and I kind of said fuck it. I'm gonna be completely honest till like later in the week. So I knew those nerfs were coming. Like I knew there were gonna be changes, and I was like, especially like with storming, like on Tuesday, it just annoyed me. So I think this week I just need to trudge through and just get more keys done.
For sure. P-Ray, hopes and dreams. What's your plans for this week?
Well, my hopes for this week are that Ret Paladins are nerfed in the ground in PvP, so I can get my score up higher instead of being completely murdered by them with 20k plus whatever the heck they do. It hurts a
Divine
lot.
Toll.
Yes, I am so tired of that.
Nerf monks. If we're gonna say this
nerf
last
monks.
6
Yeah,
minutes
nerf
for
monks.
PvP stuff, nerf fucking monks. All
They need
right.
to be nerfed in
Also,
PvE
nerf
too. They need to be
Convoke.
nerfed. They need to be nerfed
Nerf
off the
Convoke.
fucking board. Jesus. Convoke,
Yeah,
Convoke is broken in every aspect of the game as well. I don't think one button should do that much damage in PvE as well.
I hope to do
Same.
more keys. It's the same. I do most of my keys with house, so I'm on the back end of not getting enough keys done this week.
Oh, I'm excited. Oh, I'm excited for the all DK raid I'm gonna do this weekend.
Sounds fun. Sounds like a lot of death striking.
Oh, we're gonna bring healers. I've decided. I've decided. It's gonna be
That's cheating.
it's gonna be
That's
14
cheating.
DKs and 4 healers. I don't care. I'm doing it.
Anybody getting into Mythic this week or finishing up Heroic, close to finishing up Heroic?
I think we'll get AOTC this week. At least that's the hope. I think there's an opportunity that we see Shriekwing. But I think that's all dependent on people getting gear, and I know like a lot of these world first raiders are doing the same item level we are, but they are at just a completely different level of gameplay.
Christmas week, y'all still raiding? Some of us aren't going home, so I'll be playing. I'll be raiding. I'll probably stream Christmas Day.
I'm in a similar position. I don't have any. I have Thursday is the only day I'm doing anything, which is Christmas Eve, and the rest of the time I'll be here with you guys, hanging out.
We should do like a Christmas party. If like for those of us that like, me and 60. I don't know where in Ganthians.
Degenerate to no family.
I'll be here.
Yeah, I
can't leave my house.
Hey, I'm actually going out of town this weekend for a week. We're going up to the mountains to escape all the nonsense.
Oh, Muhammad, I have no family to go see.
I love how not a single person asked me my hopes and dreams, and so you know what? My hopes and dreams are to have friends that ask me about my hopes and dreams. All right?
We were
60, what are your hopes and
getting to it.
dreams?
We just wanted to hold you out a little bit so you'd feel this way. 60, what are your
edging? I'm like a very normal guy. Just like
what are your hopes and dreams this week?
I think it's pretty much the same as you guys. I'm full on the pug life, so I have a rogue that I raid with a regular guild, and they're plugging along, and so their progress is cool, and I'm comfortable with it, especially since it's like not my main character. So raid is a little tricky for me, so I'm hoping to get a little more heroic bosses done through pugging, and just keep grinding it out. I'm not lucky like Ganthion to get into a 15, but I'm really, while it's a slow process, I really enjoy the process of like going up level by level for each dungeon. I'm finding I'm learning a lot more. My keys are a lot more repeatable. My strategies are a lot more repeatable. So just continuing to chunk away at that scenario and get a level of knowledge about these dungeons that can't be replaced, and it is well suited for a lot of the tasks coming up in the future.
Yeah. So 60, you want to do a Christmas party?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we watch Letterkenny while we do a Christmas party?
Maybe.
I got a 226 weapon.
You're opening chests in the middle of the podcast? Hello?
Sorry.
Fuck.
But congrats.
You
Also,
got 2
happy
minutes.
birthday, motherfucker.
Yeah, happy birthday to Ganthian, guys.
That's your birthday gift.
That's your
Congrats.
birthday.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Fuck. Blizzard, it's not my birthday. Fuck. Almost. But yeah, so maybe we'll have like a stream Christmas party.
That'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be fun for all those that are electing to stay home or don't have anything to do. We'll be here. Come
Bring
hang out.
some eggnog and don't bring your pants.
Wait, you're wearing pants?
No.
Oh.
Maybe
Okay.
you have to go to bed.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I'm
Well, thank you for
halfway there.
Good night,
He's going to bed. Good night, 60. Good morning to everybody else. Regular human beings. But I'm gonna take a second, guys. I'm House Doctor, twitch.tv/House Doctor. If you guys want to check me out, feel free to. This is our second episode of Perk of Renewal Gaming, your weekly morning World of Warcraft podcast. I was joined by
Ganthian, you guys can. I'm actually going to start stream here afterwards. I'm doing a birthday stream just to kind of go into the day and enjoy it. And I'm just going to do what I want to do. So feel free to stop by if you'd like.
And I am 666, your resident salty 60.
Did you say salty?
Yeah.
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Come
Okay.
on.
And I am Princess Triana, your resident royalty.
GG's. Just gonna outshine us all. Partner before the rest. GG's.
Probably. All right, guys. I hope you all have a great week in Keys, PvE, PvP, whatever you decide to do. Keep grinding.